When you are planning for child-directed activities, the introduction is a really important part of the activity plan because that is your opportunity to share the activity with the children, let them know what's available, talk about how they might use the materials, because you know during a child-directed activity, you're not going to be there to facilitate the learning the whole time. So that's a big difference between child-directed and teacher-directed activities. Teacher-directed activities are the type of activities you might do during circle time with all of your students, where they're sitting and you're going step by step through the process when you're planning. But a child-directed activity, is more important to think about more step by step what you will say and what you will do in introducing the activity, but then you're just going to think about good questions and things to ask kids as they explore materials in a more child-directed way during center time. So for EDU 280, your first activity plan is a child-directed activity plan where you're planning for your favorite children's book. So I wanted to provide a quick introduction that I would give to children about if I were working with a group of 3 to 5 year olds with my favorite children's book. Okay, boys and girls, I brought this book from my house to share with you guys because it is one of my favorites. I like to read it at home with my little boy and my little girl, and it's called Mama Loves Me. Have any of you ever read this book before? Okay, so maybe some of you've read it before. One thing that I really like about this book is that this little elephant gets to talk about all the things that he loves about his mama. And so he gives all the reasons why he loves his mama and some of the fun things they do together. But another thing that I think is really cool is, look, it shows the mama elephant's trunk. This is the elephant's trunk. An elephant's nose is called its trunk. So you might like the way it feels or like to see the way it moves. Okay? Now, I am going to add Mama Loves Me to the reading area this week. I want you, when you get a chance, to go over there and check it out and see if the mama elephant in this story does some of the same things that you like to do with your mom or your grandma or your dad or somebody at your house. So think about that. When you go and look at when you go to the reading area and you look at the book Mama Loves Me, I want you to think about if you recognize some of the fun things that this elephant does with his mama, and maybe you do some of those fun things with your family members too. So when you do that, be sure to find me and tell me about some of the fun things you noticed about this book. So I'm going to put it in the Reading Center so that you can look at it on your own when you have free choice time today. Okay, so that's how I would introduce a book as a child-directed activity in a preschool classroom. So I wanted to give them a little bit of information. I wanted to let them know that I like the book. I wanted to point out some key things that I think they would like about the book. And notice I also gave them a task to look at the pictures, think about things they do with their family members, and let me know what they notice in the book that is similar to something they do with a family member. So it gives them kind of a purpose for it. Now, for this particular activity plan in EDU 280, your objective is given to you. You're going to be using language development and communication, and the subdomain is, actually, let me pull it up for us. Let me look. Okay, so I have my foundations book up. Here's language development and communication. That's the cover page for it. And the subdomain that we're using for this activity plan is foundations for reading. So I'm going to scroll down on the sidebar. The first subdomain is learning to communicate. So now I'm going to go past those. That's still learning to communicate. And here are your strategies for learning to communicate for infants and toddlers. That's something that you're going to do in EDU 250 during that week too as well. You're going to read about those things. And the next one is Foundations for Reading. Goal LCD, Language Development Communication 8, is children develop interest in books and motivation to read. That is the objective. That is your goal from Foundations for this first activity plan that you're writing. Now think about, what did I do just in my introduction of my favorite children's book to encourage children to develop an interest in books and motivation to read? Okay, I said some specific things. I did some specific things that would encourage this type of thinking in a child. So this is an activity where I'm not going to be there every time one of my students goes to read my favorite children's book, but I have already set the stage for them to draw their interest to this book and be motivated to look at it. And so think about those things. What are some things that I did for that? I hope this has been helpful in getting you started on your activity plan and thinking about how you would introduce a book that you're not necessarily reading to the whole group, but that's going to be a child-directed activity, how you would introduce it to your group, and how you would reinforce your objective for this activity plan to motivate children to be interested in books and motivated to read.